That's a one-handed pop, and let's go ahead and get it in. It is the Waffle Mafia podcast, my friends. So, Waffle Mafia podcast, I don't know what number we're on. I appreciate y'all coming hanging with me. We're all full grown. What's happening there, Brandon Brosvik? It is story time. It's time to do a little talking and get a little rhyme. What's up, Mr. Glenn? What's going on, my brother? Let's have a little pause for the calls from that man from another mother. So, a couple of things to talk about before we get on into Waffle Land. We've got a little bit more Masters news, my man. So that's the big thing. We always want to cover any news that's happening in the Masters universe, anything that's going on. What's happening, Sweeney? What's going on, my friend? A little shout out to everybody who jumps in and chats. Of course, we do pod spots. We still haven't spun for the last 2 weeks pod spots. We got to do that. And, of course, we'll add in the pod spots for tonight. I try to do those as separate wheels so that everybody feels like they get a good chance to fight. So that'll be a fun little thing for anybody who's jumping in. If this is your first time listening and you're over in Lucky Legends, just say something in the comments. Say hello. What's happening, bro? And we'll get you in on the roll. So normally we would do the podcast on Wednesday night. We're doing it on Thursday night. Work seems to be interfering with everything right now. Damn you, work. But when we do the podcast on Thursday night, it is kind of great because the person that we talk about, we get right on down to business, so that's pretty cool too. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys who jump in. Come over here for a little bit of Masters knowledge, talk some Masters with me, discuss the thing that's going on this week in the Waffle Mafia, and more or less the things that are happening within our groups and our community. So I want to start off by saying movie news. Not really, guys. I think you guys have seen that post. Of course, it's exploded. Started from some hashtags.com or something or other. But anyway, it was confirmed by Sony that the news regarding the movie, in effect, talking about Prince Adam and Skeletor being brothers, that is not true. So Sony confirmed that that's not true. Of course, they can't confirm anything else. But, and who knows? Maybe that is a direction that it goes in. What's happening, Lacey Dean? What's happening, my friend? Shout out, Brandon. Mr. Psycho Ward, what's happening, my friend? It's good to see you up in here again. Yeah, it's thank God that the news was fake, and, it's great to know that at least somebody's paying attention to the fact that people are going crazy. But, somebody reached out and confirmed with Sony that's not true. So we don't necessarily know, but in some of the conversations that were happening about it, I mean, people weren't really too torn up about it as far as going that direction with it. I think even though the mini comics, when we got to the end of the line and the mini comic led us in that direction with Search for Keldor, and sort of led us down that path, and then of course it was reimagined again in 2002 and followed that same storyline as him being Randor's half brother. It's expanded upon in Eternity War, so it does have its place within the mythos. But I really don't know how I feel about Adam and Keldor being brothers. I don't know, or Adam and Skeletor being brothers. It obviously would need the Keldor mythos there to make that work. But I don't know. Some people were not really having that big of an issue with it. More people were really upset about the fact that Orko was going to be a little man. So, me personally also, I do not need Gwildor 2.0. What's up, Chris Simpson? What's going on, my man? Alexander, sorry. No hopes for the movie. I agree, man. There's a lot of people that the hopes are not very high. movie wise, I mean, I think you guys know you're a hardcore part of the community, and you see these posts going around, and you see all these different things being said. I don't think we are, any of us, really in fear of getting a movie, because I don't think that any of us really believe that we're going to get it. And so the only thing that really strikes terror into my heart about that movie thing is it comes down to a lot of times licensing and who owns the rights to what, and who has the right to do what when. And so a lot of the discussion, or a good hearty chunk of the discussion that we're going to have tonight regarding this particular figure, or the origins of the Savage He-Man, the dark-haired He-Man, base itself in those licensing rights. And that's what really scares me, with the fact that Sony has the rights and they lose the rights in 2019. So if you guys will notice, a release date is set for December of 2019. That is the farthest date out that Sony has the rights to the property. So obviously they're going to schedule a release date at least for the very last point in time that they have the rights to actually do that with the property. What's happening, Ruth? What's going on? Mr. Hummel, Candyman, what's happening, good sir? A little shout out for Mr. Candyman jumping in. If you guys have not seen his shindigs, if there's anyone who's listening at a later time, doesn't know what a shindig is, hey, it's a lot of fun. Go over to Enjoy the Toy. Check him out over there. Enjoy the Toy, great page. Got a lot of great people. Ruth's an admin over there. She's the queen bee. If you need anything, get the buzzing in her ear. Yeah, a lot of great people, a lot of great folks. Definitely shout out to you, Mr. Candyman, doing a lot of things in the Masters community, but also in the toy community in general. So very cool stuff on you, my man. A little pause for the calls and the tip of the can. So here in a minute, we're going to get a waffle underway. And for any of you guys who don't know what a waffle is, just stick around and play. If you are listening to this at a later time and you're not a part of Lucky Legends and you don't know about these silly rhymes, come join the Waffle Mafia. Come see what we do. There's the Lord of Destruction waffles, and there's Most Powerful waffles too. And then there's Lucky Legends, and there's that boy down at Law Wheel. And those are the people that you could come make that pigger squeal, because that's what we do. And that's a Thursday and a Saturday that I hang out with you. So, guys, I appreciate all of you guys supporting and building the community and doing what you do, because without you guys, we wouldn't be doing this podcast too. So, let's see. What's up, Rubman? Then Hasbro will get the rights, and we'll get the Motu Power Rangers crossover none of us ever wanted. Yeah, that actually scares me, the idea that not only are we under a timeline as far as that thing happening, but we're also under the gun as far as the property changing hands, and how will somebody else handle it creatively, and what direction will they want to take the property, so there's a lot of moving parts there, man. And the whole movie idea scares me. Now, interestingly enough, though, if by some amazing Eternian miracle this movie does happen by December of 2019, and maybe something great does happen, and the fans are satisfied, and satellites link up, and comets are crashing, and yeah, I mean, it's possible, and it's possible. I really think due to the input that you guys and that we have as a community. And Joe and I talked about this, Joe Amato. Of course, shout out to Joe over at our other podcast, Fans of Power podcast, sister podcast here with popculturenetwork.com. And so over at Fans of Power, Joe and I were talking about using the voice of the community and speaking through the community. And I think that in this particular point in time, and especially in regards to two things, I think the continuation of the line, which we love, and of course the characters, the classics figures, the continuation of that line, the Club Grayskull line. pushing for the 5.5 figures, those kind of things. In regards to that, and in regards to this movie, I think that we are positioned at probably the best point that we could be to have our voices actually be heard about how we feel about those things. So instead of, when these things get released and these things get thrown out to us, instead of going nuts and, you know, I hate this and Super 7 sucks and, you know, blah, blah, let's use this forum creatively and collectively and see if we can't make our voices be heard, especially in the sense of leading in a direction that we want to see these things go. I really can't help but believe that there had to be some talk or some uproar regarding that shot of Tila's mech suit, and I just really feel like that got heard. And so through the platforms that we have, the positive ways that we can reach out, and through the fact that, guys, we have created a very large community, and it is only a small piece of a much larger community. So if we can unite and get our voices together and have those things be heard, we really have a chance of steering these things in the direction that we would like to see them go. And it's nice to see Super 7 reach out and discuss things with us. I did see that, a little shout out to Adam Monroe. I know we pick on him a lot in the group, but Adam posted, you know, a nice post this week showing that he had sent an email to Super 7 and it was quickly resolved, and you know, it was a very simple process. It wasn't that big of a deal. And so I know there's been some horror stories. I know that has not been the case for some other people, but it is nice that this company does try to interact with us and try to hear the cries of the fans. I think if you listen to a lot of Brian's interviews, you'll hear that. So a little pause for the cause from my always loving Super 7, y'all. I apologize, man. I'm not like the big advocate for Super 7 and all that good stuff, but there are things that they do right. So we'll pause that and then let's whap it. All right. So last week we did a lot of crazy things. Last week was nuts, especially in terms of waffles. So one of the things that we're talking about in the group that has kind of been the plan from day one is trying to waffle every classics figure that's ever been made. So whether they be a main event, part of the main event, or whether they just be given away during a waffle, if they got waffled off, I have counted that figure towards the list of the ones that have been waffled. Now, there are figures that we've done multiple times. There's been nights where we have done multiple figures in a single night. In fact, we did 3 Shadow Weavers one night, so it was just ridiculously stupid. But I know we did 2 Shadow Weavers that night and another one later that week. So, but anyway, the point being, the whole plan has always been to try to waffle off all of the classics figures. So there are a lot of those figures out there that are a bit hard to get a hold of. Some of them are definitely hard to get your hands on. What's happening, Jeff Foster? What's going on, buddy? Yes, I agree with that entirely. Yeah, we did 2 Shadow Weavers that night, and then 2 nights later, I think. What's up, D-Lo? What's going on? But in order to do all of the classics figures, there are some pretty tough ones that you got to get a hold of, and there's some that, you know, they're fairly rare. They're fairly tough to get a hold of. We have done Fisto. There's some of the more rare figures that we actually have done and done multiple times. And WUN-DAR we have done before, but the rarity being more so on his vintage counterpart, obviously. So the Savage He-Man that you see out there. Now, I'm glad that we're not doing those, and the mission wasn't to waffle every vintage variant that is out there, because if that be the case, we would be out there for days just trying to do this stuff. And money-wise, I would never even be able to keep up with it. But truthfully, we're very lucky, and through participation with you guys and you guys jumping in and doing what you do, I'm able to get my hands on the ones to give back to you guys. And so WUN-DAR being one of those, WUN-DAR is you know, it's not that he's necessarily a tough figure to get a hold of, but at a good price and something that his value is a bit higher than some of the others. So there's that. But there's WUN-DAR in his nice, beautiful classics packaging. So there he is. Down at the bottom, billed as the Savage He-Man. So we'll talk about him a little bit more in just a minute. But in the recap, the reason I brought up the difference in getting a hold of some of these strange figures, it's interesting to understand how the dynamic of this works. But to get a Battle Armor Faker and do him last week was just a really high point of us doing waffles, and it really shows how far we've come in a sense of you guys jumping in and sort of making that thing happen and being able to throw that back in and get bigger and better figures for you guys. So did a Battle Armor Faker, did a He-Man, did a Faker, original Faker that went out to Mr. Mandingo Dine, did a #1 Origins comic, Caverns of Fear book, went out to Mr. Wily Cat. And if you guys, I really appreciate you guys posting the pictures on the page, because that makes it so much cooler where everybody can see what everybody won, and that's awesome too. So I know that's been going on for the last couple of days, and I really appreciate that. So always cool when you guys share this stuff when you get waffle mail. So Mr. Fletcher last week, Classics Battle Cat. Hilarious comment on that photo. I thought it was really funny. Alexander Kent pretty much wiped up. So it was Mr. Kent's sort of week last week. He did a lot of wiping up. It was not the normal pitchfork thing that we get from Mr. Glenn or Artie. Now, Cullen Culps is on that list right now. So Cullen Culp, I always put an S on a Culps. But no, it's Cullen Culp. Cullen is on that list right now. He is definitely in hand for Pitchfork, for being the Pitchfork Princess right now, because he went over to Lord of Destruction Waffles last night, wiped up on that Mega. He had wiped that Mega once before. Actually, in fact, I think twice before. So Cullen definitely bringing himself up to legend status, man, because that was how the things got started back in the old days, doing things with David over there at Lord of Destruction Waffles. So shout out to you, Cullen. I know how tough that is to win the Megas. Don't we, Steve? Don't we, Mr. Alphabet? We know how tough that is. Hashtag Mega for Magnus. We got to get that going, guys. That's been so much fun. But we did put a couple of other things on the run. Mr. Kent took home a Cyclone, Classic Cyclone, Jakey B, 2000X Battle Cat, Brent Backman. I have the Power Book. Boogie, Lord Dactus, Brent Backman, the Jewel of Light book, Goosey Goose Rock Warriors. And that's what that was sort of the waffle wrap up for last week, and all the things that we got together and did for on the play. And that's a little pause for the cause, and I'm going to send y'all's way. What's happening there, Mr. Myslewick? John, what's going on, my friend? Jeff, the Corporator. You know that's right, my friend. Cullen has been on an absolute tear, and he really has. If you look at his Legends wins, he's got a lot of Legends wins too. I really would love to go back and look at a true player score for everybody. Number of times that you played, in a total number of times, as far as number of spots taken and number of times that it landed on you. So just a player score, that I think that would be really cool to calculate. Be really tough to go back and dig through these things, how I vomit when I go back and watch them. So here's what it is, and here's what it be. We got to get over here and talk about this Wonder Bread man. You see, now WUN-DAR, as this particular figure is imagined, is actually a nod to an earlier imagining, which is what we're going to talk about first. And then we're going to jump over here and make the syrup burst. But prior to that, so there is that elusive figure, and I know that you guys know who I'm talking about. Wonder Bread He-Man, as most people refer to him. I personally do call him Wonder Bread. I don't know why. Probably because of the association or fondness that I have for WUN-DAR. I really do love WUN-DAR as a figure. I love the mystery and the backstory that surrounds the Savage He-Man, or the dark-haired He-Man, if you will. So, real quick backstory for anybody that doesn't know, sort of bring you up to speed. There is a He-Man figure. It is one of the vintage figures. It is a dark-haired figure. There are typically some very pointed things about this vintage figure that stick out. There are a lot of fakes out there, so be careful. If you get him off of the secondary market, you buy him off of eBay, there are some that are graded. There are some that have the full weapons pack with them. There's some that come with a Zodak armor. There's some that do not. So it's one of those things where we don't really have a definitive, this is exactly where this figure came from. And like I spoke about earlier in licensing details, a lot of the reason of that may lay in the fact that there was a little bit of bad blood between Mattel and CPI, which was Conan Properties. I think it was CPI or CPM, CPI, I believe. But so Conan Properties had reached out to Mattel, wanted them to create a line of Conan action figures. That sort of falls through. A little bit later, Mattel comes out with the He-Man line, pisses the Conan people off because it doesn't match, or it's a barbarian, and it's really just a blonde-haired Conan, and so this embroiling legal battle goes back and forth where neither one side can say that the other's correct. As far as the ruling goes, it rules in favor of Mattel, and the idea that He-Man doesn't necessarily have a strong enough likeness or a strong enough basis in the world of Conan for the similarity to be there to a point that Mattel would lose the right to the brand or lose the right to the property. CPI was being very demanding. They actually wanted the entire line. They wanted everything that Mattel had that was He-Man related. Of course, He-Man being created, as you guys have seen, prior to that, so very interesting in some of the early drawings of things that Mr. Taylor did. Those bases finding themselves before Conan. Now, obviously, when you get into a swords and sorcery type world, there are going to be similarities. I don't care, and it can be. I'm sure that it could be something that was influenced by the Conan type artwork, Franzetti. So it's one of those things where early on, this particular figure, this dark-haired He-Man, made its way out, and nobody really knows exactly how or where or why this figure was done. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of different ideas as to where the figure came from. There's some people that swear up and down that it has to do with Wonder Bread, that they know for a fact, they remember as a kid. But the truth is, nobody has been able to produce anything that directly ties this figure to Wonder Bread or to a particular promotion that Mattel ran with Wonder Bread. What's up, Mr. Black? What's going on? Did they ever establish it as legit? They have established that the figure itself is legit. It is a true He-Man figure. It's just the legitimacy lies in what was its intent. And so the fact of it being black-haired, in my personal opinion, and I don't like to throw this out there a lot as far as on this particular figure, because I think a lot of people will take that and run with it and say that that is what it is. But and I don't really like to go on record to say that I think that this is what it is. But in my personal opinion, I think that there probably was some development for the Conan line, and I would say that maybe there was some prototype stuff that got done and some stuff that was already laying around. Time period would definitely indicate that this figure was around with Wave 1. It also indicates with some stuff due to man-faces. So we'll tack down that little piece of it too real quick, and then we'll get on to the waffle and get to doing what we do. So I'll take a little pause for the calls real quick, and we'll tie this up with WUN-DAR and stuff. What's happened, Jeff? Martin Taylor alluded to the fact that it was some sort of premium figure. Now, that's interesting. That is one theory that I haven't heard, and it could make sense. I mean, there is an explanation out there. I don't know what it is, and I don't know why no one has it. There's a very interesting blog out there. If you just simply Google Wonder Bread He-Man, there is an interesting blog out there. I can't quite remember the name of it. I know it had Tyler in the name of it or something like that. But this gentleman is more or less interviewing his brother discussing the details under which that he got this figure. Now, as far as that story goes, that is probably the most believable and most interesting story that I've heard that would strongly support the fact that it was a mail away, just not necessarily a mail away with Wonder Bread. Keep in mind, Mattel did do a promotion with Wonder Bread, and they did that, but it was in '86, and it had to do with trading cards. It didn't necessarily have anything to do with figures. Now, we do know for a fact that there were a lot of these little coupons out there that said if you buy 3 figures, get 1 free. There was also a Barbie promotion that Mattel was running at that time. And in fact, there even could have been a promotion where there was something sent out based on the UPCs going in that could have been the Savage He-Man being sent out in its place. So this individual states that it was a mail-in, and the reason that he recalls it to be a mail-in, the reason that he knows the figures that he bought, he says that the promotion itself was specific to the fact that you had to buy a Man-E-Faces. So if you had to buy Man-E-Faces, it would further allude itself to the fact that those weapons would have been available at that point in time. Castle Grayskull was also being made at that time, as well as the weapons pack. So if the burgundy weapons that were a part, or the maroon weapons that were a part of Man-E weapons, were nothing more than a recolor from the stuff from Castle Grayskull, and that stuff was also out at the time, is it possible to say that Mattel had some extra stuff laying around? They wanted to get it out. It was promotional. Maybe at the last second they decided it was too close to Conan and they decided to change the hair color. Maybe the paint scheme got changed. We've seen that a whole lot with the concept stuff from the early concept stuff from Mattel that later became our figures. The color changes, the paint apps changing. So maybe that figure was promotional. The details got changed. It was too similar. They couldn't use it. And they decided to include it with this particular mail-away offer. And so it made a lot of sense to me when he's discussing this, is that not only did the one brother remember his brother having the figure, but the brother did remember in pretty good detail the facts of why he got the figures that he got. So he was new to collecting the Masters line. He bought a He-Man, a Skeletor, and he was going to buy a third and different figure. However, the deal brought, and I think he states that the deal was brought up to him by his mother, or reminded him by his mother, that if he bought Man-E-Faces, he could get the mail-in and get a 4th figure free. So if that be the case, and it would make sense to me, if these weapons are laying around and we have extras, we have these promotional figures that we can't use, he remembered it coming in a clear plastic bag. It has been stated that it has been packaged that way. And the only thing that he remembered having with his was the shield. Now, maybe he lost a weapon. Sometimes some folks show that it's the axe. Some show it's the sword. The maroon shield is definitely always in there. Some folks show him with the Zodak armor, some folks without. Now, the interesting thing about the black Zodak armor, that we've seen other things in the Masters line be reused. We've seen Beastman's top harness piece with the shoulder pads be reused in a weapons pack. We've seen those different colors in those weapons pack. This also being a part of those weapons packs. So Zodak's original color, red, this being done within the weapons pack as black, also being around at the time that this promotional figure could have been being given out. So suffice to say, it's easy to put a lot of these little puzzle pieces together that folks have pieced together and understand why there's a confusing mythos surrounding this character. Now, what's surprising to me is that nobody has a record anywhere of where this figure came from. Nobody at Mattel. Now, due to the legal stuff, I could understand that maybe that's the reason that they can't really talk about it. But still, nobody has leaked this over the years. Nobody at all remembers where this figure came from. Come on, guys. Got to do better than that. But either way, no matter what you believe, no matter whether you like him or not, WUN-DAR, or the Wonder Bread He-Man, or the Savage He-Man, or however you would like to refer to him, or whichever mythos you would like to believe as far as where the figure came from, he's a part of the line. He's definitely not going anywhere, and due to that, of course, Classics came in and did a very nice little throwback, a little kickback to the Wonder Bread mythos and gave us WUN-DAR. He is packaged with the blaster. He has the black Zodak armor. He does have a loaf of bread. He's got the Sword of He, which he's protecting, and they did go back and give him a backstory in Classics. So his backstory is he was the Man of He, or one of the He-Men who was defending and protecting the two halves of the Power Sword. Hailing from Tundaria, WUN-DAR was the He-Man prior to Adam coming and reuniting the two halves of the Power Sword. So that was his job to watch over that prior to. He was very savage, and that, even the play on Savage, is a throw, or could be a throw off at CPI, once again, Conan Properties, from the roll-up in Savage Sword of Conan and some of the likenesses that there are there. So with the Savage He-Man, WUN-DAR, he was given his backstory. He was very savage. He saved a young Shirella who was in disguise, the goddess as we know her, with those pretty green eyes. And other than that, more or less just protecting the Sword of He until time for Adam to find it, or find the two halves. Interestingly enough, he did make another appearance in the 2012 Eternity War series. So I don't know if you guys have ever caught that, but there is a scene where Skeletor is the master of death, and he's calling upon some of the ancients to come back and fight for him. And WUN-DAR specifically is one that is called by name and is called forth to do battle. So interesting nod there, 2012 Eternity War series. Other than that, guys, I think that's what it be. I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with me. Give me about 5 minutes, if you don't care. 5 minutes, I promise I'm not going to go do my hair. I'm getting the last minute names on the wheel, anybody who was last minute jumping in. So going to get the wheel tidied up, get that greased. I had it ready early, so we're ready to go. And then we'll get over here and do ourselves a little Thursday, bro. I appreciate you guys hanging with me. Check out popculturenetwork.com. Go to heman.org. Go over, check out Fans of Power podcast. Check out the Masters of the Galaxy podcast. Check out, good God, man, enjoy the toy. Also, one thing I wanted to bring up tonight before I let you go, and I'll have a little bit more info on it next week, is the Slime Pit. If you guys don't know what the Slime Pit is, why not get over there, get slimy, go see the Slime Pit, baby, because here's what it be. This will be the second part of the Toys for Tots Drive you see. So this will be Toys for Tots Drive Waffle number 2, and that will take place over at the Slime Pit, my dudes. So Wade Parker, Laura Edelman, great people. Get over there, check them out, join the Slime Pit, get on that page. What are you waiting for? We'll talk to you guys later. We'll see you here in a few. Get over here and do some Lucky Legends. We'll make it do what it do. I love each and every one of y'all. We'll see you later. Peace.